that links to all the tools that we'll be going over tonight. And if I have a chance, I'll also give you a quick example of how to use them as well, so you don't have to scroll through the video to learn how to use them. Okay, so real quick, my lab is I just have a VMware lab here. I have a development machine here. I run Visual Studio on it, Python. The two languages, in PowerShell are the three really that's I use exploits on the most. I have a small AD lab set up here, which is a domain controller. It's a 2016 server. I have a 2012 server. A Windows 10 machine is also part of the domain, and then I have a Unix box for another tool that I'm going to be using tonight. So tonight we're going to be going over some tools, and I'll just start off at the top and get through this. So we'll start off with some Active Directory tools. Grouper, if you haven't seen it before, it's Active Directory enumeration used for offense, defense, just like almost all of these tools. And let me see here. If I am going too fast, somebody will have to chat to Phil because I can't see what's going on there. But let's do Grouper real quick. So let's jump out to my tools directory. And really, Grouper is one of those tools where I want to show you something that's not as cool as Pingcastle, to show you just how cool Pingcastle is. So Grouper is a tool. Grouper 2. And we're just gonna run this guy, Grouper 2, and do a -G, and that will give you the output that you need. Essentially what this tool does is Active Directory enumeration. Again, this is part of my small Active Directory right here. And let's see here, and you can see it scrolling by here. We get some good information here. But it's not nearly as cool as the information you get from Pingcastle. So you get the information about the password policy, some information about the GPO, some registry information, different information about privileged groups. And let's see here. And again, the whole point of this, I wanted to show you this tool, is because while this tool has some useful features, what is a really amazing tool is something called Pingcastle that I want to point out. And if you're not familiar with Pingcastle before, please check it out. You will love it. If you are familiar with Vincent Letou, he is a co-author of Mimikatz. So every time you run Mimikatz, you will see Vincent Letou, whether or not you know it or not. If you run Mimikatz, just take a quick look at the splash screen that comes up, and you'll see that Vincent Letou is listed on there as well. And I hope I'm not butchering his name. But let me take you over to Pingcastle now. And by the way, you can see who am I /priv. You'll notice that my Joe user doesn't have any special privileges. It's just a regular user at this point. So we're going to go over to Pingcastle, and again, it's a super easy tool to use here. Pingcastle, and just run it. And Pingcastle is C#. It is open source, so if you need to modify it, you can. I've actually had to modify it myself due to a bug that was in the program, and so I just needed to remove some code so that it would run to completion, and I modified it. So here's the basic UI of Pingcastle. And just if you need to do a quick Active Directory assessment, whether you are an attacker or a defender, this is a fantastic tool. And I'll show you some of the other features in a moment. But it's prompting you for your domain. You can see it's running default. My domain is rebeladmin.net. Okay, I'm going to run that. And this takes a minute or so. It's a small domain, but this gets you a ton of information. So let's let it run here for a second. Produces beautiful reports, gathering GPO objects. Great. Okay, so we're going to go to the folder that this is running from. And let's see here. It says launched interactive, and we're going to go to the Pingcastle folder. And here is a beautiful report. It's my, let me go to full screen here for you just get the full Monty here. This is the report that it generates here. So it says, hey, my Active Directory sucks. It's basically domain risk level of 100. Okay, and it talks about stale objects. Doesn't have a problem with trust. I don't have more than one domain controller. It talks about problems with privileged access, problems with anomalies, and it breaks these things out very, very nicely. For example, you can click on each one of these things. So the presence of a 2003 server. I don't have that one turned on, but it is part of my domain. So obviously that's going to add some points. Number of accounts that have empty passwords, non-admin users that add up to 10 computers to a domain, SMB v1, yes, it's my practice lab, so it's vulnerable as heck. The subdomain declaration is incomplete, talks about privileged access. Again, you can expand on every one of these things. Okay. So the privilege, it gives you a nice description on these things as well. And a lot of these things you can actually take a link to. A lot of these things actually link to these things as well. No problems with the trust here. Anomalies, like I set up this lab 514 days ago, and I haven't changed my KRGBT password. But one nice thing about that is it tells you exactly what you need to do that. So there's a gallery on Microsoft TechNet, and it's just a PowerShell script, and you follow that link, and you can reset your KRBTGT password, and it tells you how it rates the points. And again, this is just a fantastic tool to gather some information about Active Directory in a very, very short amount of time. That only took me a few minutes for my 4-computer domain. It's really 5 if I add a couple of the other machines that are turned off, but don't have enough RAM to run them all at the moment. But it also gives you fantastic information about the number of accounts. A lot of these things, you can actually see the inactive accounts. So you can see I haven't used my Kerberoasting service accounts for quite a while. I have a test admin, I have a Z admin, I have a bunch of stale accounts that I have out here that I haven't used in the last 6 months. So it's fantastic from an attacker's perspective. You might be able to say, hey, which account should I target? Well, there's a great list for you. There's lots of ways to get that information. This is just another one of them. Objects that have an empty password. Hey, there's one that has an empty password. This one right there. That might get a good target for an attacker. More account analysis, and again, from an attacker's perspective and from a defense perspective, we're looking at the Windows 2016 servers, 2008 servers, 2003, and I've got a Windows 10 box. Again, the older the box, the more likely it is to have vulnerabilities. Anyways, it's just a great report. I want to show you just a couple other features about this this tool that I find really helpful. Let's go back to our command and run it again. All right, try pin castle. And some of the other features that I found incredibly useful, if it decides to run. All right, it has some scanner options. Before I move on, I want to point out that there's an advanced option that says, make sure if you're going to run this, if you have a large domain, to remove the limit. I've got it set to remove the limit just as an example. My little domain, that's not necessary, but let's go back to the previous menu. And I like some of the options in here. So for example, if you want to know all of the, you want to know the entire antivirus and the entire domain, give it a shot, sure. Scan all the computers, and from an attacker and a defense perspective, you can see pretty quickly what kind of AV is running in the domain. It's a fantastic little tool for computers to explore. Takes just a moment. And of course, if you have a large domain, this could take quite a while. And do remember that I'm just running this with a regular account right now. I'm just running it with no special permissions, and I'm still able to get quite a bit of information. Okay, that's done. While that's going, we'll take a look at the output. You can see it produced a little report here. You can see that I'm running Windows Defender. I'm not doing anything special. No AV on my 2012 server, and it couldn't connect to my domain controller. And I have a few other machines that are turned off. One other fun feature in here in the scanner section is find admin access, local admins on computers. Those could be good targets to spray, for example. So I'm just going to check the entire domain, run it again. I need to see, or I want to see all the local administrators on all of the computers.
Can you take a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Blaze asked if this tool, how loud is this tool when performing scans and enumeration?
I would imagine it's very loud, Blaze, and I haven't actually looked at it from a defensive perspective to see how loud that is, but yeah, I would be interested to look at that myself. I would love to work with my blue team to give them a shot on that and see what that looks like from their side. So here it is real quickly. I'll take another question in just a second, but you can see here's the computers and you can see the administrators on each of these machines. So it's super helpful. Got that information pretty darn quick. What's the next question?
The next one was, do you know the source of the AV binary service process for Pingcastle?
I do not, but we could look at the code if there's time. We could certainly look through the code and see how it's determining what antivirus it is using. But again, it is open source. I have the source code, and so if time permits, we can certainly look at that. But feel free to look at the code yourself, and or hit me up at the next DHA, and I'll be happy to look at that with you, see if we can figure it out. Okay, so that's Pingcastle in a nutshell. There's other cool features with this tool. Just take a look at the scanner. A lot of good stuff in there. You can find the open shares that can be accessible by anyone. Just really quickly, that's a really nice tool. Now there's PowerUp does that. Darren and I worked on a tool to do that. You can see if Laps and BitsLocker are there. Just good stuff in general. So that's Pingcastle. And before I move on, are there any other questions on Pingcastle? We got quite a bit of tools to look at.
Someone asked what kind of overhead or chatter this produces on wire.
As far as the overhead and chatter on the wire, I am not sure. I haven't looked at it from a defensive perspective. I have run it at work with many thousands of computers, and it worked fine. But again, I got permission to do so, but I don't know how big of a signature that raised up.
I think it'd be no more different than just LDAP queries.
Could be,
because this is pulling the LDAP connectors and stuff for Active Directory. So I've seen that this tool also being presented with Bloodhound. So
I mean, yeah. So
I don't think you're trying to be stealthy, but it's
not trying. Yeah,
pretty good audit tool.
Probably great. Yeah, pretty great for audit tool. Now this one, I'll move on to the next one. This is now moving into more of a red team scenario, or this could also potentially be used as a honeypot or something to at least alert your team. This is called Flamingo. It came out just recently, and I saw this and I thought, fantastic, that is freaking cool. So if there are scanners in your environment and they connect out to your boxes through SSH, HTTP, FTP, it doesn't do SMB yet, but they are taking pull requests. So if you're interested and you can program and go, they are looking for contributors. What this does essentially is it fires up a listener, and let's actually fire this guy up. I'm gonna pretend I've compromised this server over here. Let's see here. Let's run Flamingo. And because it's opening ports, you do need to run this as administrator. Flamingo. Of course, we have Mimikatz on there because of course we do. All right, so we're just gonna run Flamingo. It's easy. Again, not the log file. No, it's not gonna be helpful. Let's try that again. All right, so what this is doing is it's starting up a listener all over the place, and so I'm gonna make some connections to this guy. So let's start off with FTP. Just FTP to that guy. We'll do FTP to I think it's server 2012. Server. We'll know pretty quickly, server 2012. And hey, it's prompting me. So it's got a user. I'm gonna say user is Joe user. And I'm gonna enter my real password because, hey, why not? And it says closed. But over on the server side here, you get my username and my password right there. Pretty nice. All right, now let's throw some SSH traffic at it. So you can imagine like a vulnerability scanner coming in there, and it puts in some passwords that might have admin on multiple computers, that sounds like a pretty useful tool from a collection perspective. So let's do server 2012. I don't know if it's gonna server 2012 and see, connect. And as you can see, potential security breach. Do you accept this? Yes, of course we do. Let's do it again. Joe user. Access denied. It says that, but guess what's happening over here? There it is, SSH. So there's our SSH, there's our user, there's our password. It's just accepting and stealing the password. Fantastic, right? All right, let's do HTTP real quick. And I think I need the IP because I can't remember. I don't think it'll resolve by that. So let me just do config 10.10.129. So you can entice somebody to connect to that. 29. And if everything that prompts you for your password, you're supposed to enter it, right? Of course. And of course we get it. Now we don't get over here. You don't get the clear text password, but you do get a hash that you can crack with Hashcat pretty easily, especially with my crappy password. Okay, and then finally, it also does LDAP. So let's go to tools. And it does another one as well, but I can't remember it. So there's a test LDAP. Where is it? I know it's somewhere in here. I did this the other day. Darn it! Oh, wrong machine. That's why I was on the wrong folder. I've got tools all over the place, and I get lost sometimes. So test WNIC password. We're just going to open that. Enter password. Test. Access denied. But we have our password right there. Username and password right there.
It takes a while to refresh on the
Oh, okay. So anyways, so as you can see, Flamingo is an incredible tool from a defensive perspective, but it also could be used from the blue team's perspective. You might want to set something up, and if your red team hits it, you can send an alert on there. Now you may have to modify the code to do that, but again, it would be a useful tool to determine, hopefully, to capture some credentials. All right, let's move on to the next one. Actually, any questions on that before we move on to the next tool? No tools? All right, fantastic. Okay, let's move on. Okay, detect NTLM password by NTLM flow. This is another tool from Vincent Latu, and I saw this on his GitHub repository, and I just said, oh, we're going to turn this into something even more fun. So what this is detect password by NTLM flow. And see if I can, I guess I'll load the, suppose I will load the solution. If you're not familiar with Visual Studio, by the way, it's fairly easy to get used to. A lot of the tools, again, are in C# these days. And I'm going to show you guys a tool that makes hiding your payloads so much easier here in a minute. All right. So we're just going to build this guy. And this is fairly easy for me. I've been a developer since the 90s, so it's a little bit easier for me. So if I do something and you don't know what I've done real quickly, I've gone through it, just raise your hand, let me know if you have questions. This is C# or C++ code, and this is, again, not my code, Vincent Latu, way, way, way smarter than me. The only thing, let's see here, is it done? Yes, the build succeeded. So if you're building in Visual Studio, one thing you can remember really quickly is it gives you the path. If it builds successfully, it gives you the path to the executable. Sorry. So I'm running this as a regular user here. Let me get out of there for just a second. All right. And who am I /priv, and you'll see I'm a regular user. The utility for this, I've done a presentation on this real quickly at the DHA, is that if you've compromised an account, or somebody leaves their computer unlocked, or you've compromised a web server, and maybe you've captured a password with a responder or something, or Inve, and you want to test if the password is valid. So this right here, oops, wrong one. That is the one that I've actually modified. That's my version of it.
Someone had a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It says, what is a solution and what is building it? Is this basically just compiling?
Yes, essentially it is compiling. So the solution is just, it contains, oftentimes a solution is a container for projects. A lot of times source controlled applications have multiple projects in them, and a solution is just a higher level container for multiple projects. Oftentimes you'll see my solutions often only contain one project, and essentially all I'm doing is compiling it. So I hope that answered your question. If you have any follow-ups, feel free to let me know. Let's take a quick look, see if I've got the original here. Okay, so yeah, here's the original detect NTLM flow by detect password via NTLM flow. Sorry, I'm going too fast. But essentially what this is it allows you to guess passwords unlimited without causing a lockout. This is not locking out at all. But if I actually type the real user in here, or sorry, real password, you can see that it finds the password. I'm sorry, I did that a little bit too fast. Let's do that again. All right. So again, I can just guess passwords all day long, and this doesn't cause any lockout, which is incredible, actually. And so when I saw this, I said, one, I suck at guessing at passwords, and two, this is really, really helpful for example, if I run into a machine that has credential guard and I can't get passwords any other way, right? So what I did is I modified Vincent Latou's code to take in a password list. So from Rocky, and essentially what I've done is you can see that I've got Rocky right here, and I've got this thing called get user's password. The other thing is by default, I think his get user's password only took up to, I want to say 16 characters. I modified it to be able to accept up to 40 characters. Now, obviously that would be unrealistic to guess that many, but hey, we're gonna do it anyways. So let's get back to temp. And what this does, so for example, let's say Phil leaves his computer unlocked here for just a minute, runs to the bathroom, and he's got a crappy password. If I was able to slide this in on his computer and turn it on the temp, you just let that run, and what it's going to do is start guessing those passwords for me. Like I said, typing in it was incredibly slow, so all I did was modify Vincent Latou's code to put in a for loop and read from RockU, and then once it finds the password, you can see, bam, there's the password. Again, there are way better ways to get passwords, but this is just another tool in your toolbox.
What does it check the password against?
What does it test the password against? Again, that is, let's go actually look at the documentation and see if we can figure that out real quick. Under credential dumping, and this is a way I like to store my documentation, by the way. This might be helpful for if you're doing something like this. I'll point this out. I don't remember all the details, but what I like to do is I like to keep a copy of the code, and I also like to keep a copy of the GitHub so that I can look at it pretty quickly and figure out what it's doing. And it says, extract the password of the current user via SSPI to get a valid NTLM challenge response and test passwords. So I hope that answers it. That's as deep as I've gotten. The only other thing that I'd mentioned was when I was in the code right here, I'll show you the small modifications that I made to his code to make that possible. The very bottom here, bear with me.
So someone asked, how is it not triggering the lockouts?
I don't know. I actually do not know, but I know for a fact that it doesn't. I've tested it on my own lab. I've tested it at work with permission, and it does not trigger lockouts. Even our blue team was scratching their head on that. So I'm sure there's a good answer for that, but I don't have it for you. Sorry. But hey, the good news is it doesn't trigger lockout. So it's going to be a fun tool to play with. Okay, so let's, is there any other questions before I move on?
No.
Okay, let's move on. So that's detect NTLM flow. The get user's password, if you're interested, I did an article on this. That's the one I just showed you a minute ago. I'll take a quick gander over there.
Someone asks us, how noisy is it?
It's not noisy at all. It is, like I said, when I worked with it with our blue team, they didn't even see it. They were befuddled. They didn't know how to stop it. They didn't know how to alert on it. Very nice, useful tool. So this is a detailed walkthrough of the tool that I just went through just a minute ago. And again, this is Vincent Latou's code. This is not mine. The only thing I've done here, you can see before and after replacement script. And here is the code that I basically replaced it with. Hard-coded it. I hard-coded it. Just beware, I hard-coded it to use the C temp RockU. So if you're going to try to reproduce this, you could put it anywhere you want. You could put it in the executing assembly folder, but you would have to modify the folder to do that. So that's the only code that I added to his awesome tool. And as you can see, you get the password if it is in the, again, if it's in the password dictionary. And it guesses pretty quickly too. I think you saw it going. It's definitely not going to ever be comparable to a Hashcat or something that actually is designed to crack NTLM hashes, but it's pretty darn quick for in my opinion. All right. So next, I want to show you guys any other questions before I move on.
No.
Okay, great. So Sharp Locker, this is just kind of a fun tool. I think it's more stunt hacking than anything, but it's still kind of cool. And fake log on screen is like Sharp Locker, but it's better. And again, I like to show you some of the tools that show you one thing that's doing it one way, and so you can see that it also, there's other ways to do the same thing but better. And there's almost always multiple tools to do the same thing, and I love and learn from all of these different things. So let's find Sharp Locker, and if you guess what's going to go on here, all this is doing is it makes it look like looks like somebody locked the screen. Now, if you type in your password here, Sharp Locker doesn't care what you put in there. It doesn't check it against it. It doesn't actually verify that the value entered. It's just capturing that somewhere, and you can modify the code to put it wherever you want to. Now, again, that's rudimentary, but I love the concept. I'm pretty sure that Sharp Locker came out first, and then somebody took that concept and improved it with fake logout screen. So you're going to see. Let me make sure I delete the location there. And this is a more advanced version of it. But again, somebody came out with a rudimentary version of it, and so just a notepad. Just grab. All right, let's delete this. So we have a fresh file. Okay, so now when I run fake log on screen, you'll notice that one, it looks a little bit better in a minute, and two, when you actually type the password, if you type the wrong password, guess what? Password's incorrect. It's done some work in here. This will actually lock you out. So we're not going to do that, but we're going to enter the real password. So somebody took that concept and advanced it, and now you can actually, there's a million different things. You could send that out to an HTTP as a parameter, and now you've got somebody's password. I think this is just an incredible little fun tool to do. And we're going to schedule a task with it here in a minute. So in case somebody leaves their computer, you could have it randomly lock their computer, and hey, I thought that was a pretty good idea. So we're going to look out here in this folder, and we're going to open this. Again, you could send this anywhere. You need to modify the information. You can see there was a wrong password. They entered the word, I entered test, and it was wrong. And then when they entered the correct password, it shows correct. So again, you can dump this off to an SMB share. You can ship it off HTTP. You could do whatever it is you want on that. One more fun thing to do is, again, schedule a task. Task scheduler. And again, I'm just running as Joe user right now. which is kind of fun. All right, so let's just run that task. And you could obviously schedule it, but the end result would be that at some point their screen's going to get locked. They're going to enter their password, and the only thing that you do here, if you hit escape, it doesn't do anything, but if you hit Control-Alt-Delete on here, that will actually give up the game. But who's actually going to do that, right? So you can see that that gives up the game. But a lot of people are, especially if you're like on a physical pen test or something like that, they're going to fall for this. And I doubt that they, especially if you schedule it just once, they're probably never going to go look at their task. You know, you probably do a rubber ducky to drop the payload, create a task, run it as that user, ship it off to some SMB share that you have on the network, or if you know that you can get exfiltration, then do that as well. Okay, there was a question, David D.
Someone asked about how does it know the real password to deny the login?
I'm assuming we can begin. If time permits, we can take a look at the code. But it does, and why not? Let's take a quick look at the code. Let's go see. I'm guessing because this does lock you out, it actually does perform an authentication. Let's see if I've got fake logon screen. Let's take a quick look at the code.
Someone also asked if virus total would pick it up.
Not currently. It's a fairly new tool, and yes, I mean I can't think of any good non-malicious use for this other than like a prank. But you know, we can shoot this up to virus total real quick and find out. Let's do that.
The only thing you do there, then the likelihood of being detected is going to be
Yeah,
greater.
I'm sure somebody's already sent that up. So I mean, yeah, just compile it and send it up there. It's not a big deal. So let's take a look and see where it's actually performing the login. Let's see here. Password is incorrect. Here we go. We can see right here it's saying if success. So it's performing a logon screen success. Ask if the password is correct. And then it says password is incorrect, try again. So let's go figure out what it's doing here. Where is success set? Let's see here. I'm not sure if that's a method, go to definition. So that is so it's just a Boolean. Go back, please. All right, and where does this get set? Okay, so if right line, username, password, error, correct, wrong. Success equals true. Okay, so validate credentials. So I'm guessing that this method right there, just all it does is it calls validate credentials with the username and passwords, returns true or false. So it is actually performing a test. And like I said, if I actually type the password wrong 3 times, it will lock out the account. So, okay. Any more questions before I move on to the next tool?
Nope.
All right, I hope you guys are having fun. I hope you guys are learning about a new tool or two, and I always enjoy doing this. I wish I could do this full time. Okay, we did the fake logon screen, we scheduled the taps. Okay, so now we're gonna play around with WCM dump, and this is not something that isn't already done. Like Mimikatz has something that does this already well, but I just wanted to show you that sometimes when you take a PowerShell tool that is really calling C# and there's like a block on it, or sorry, antivirus picks it up, sometimes all you have to do is turn the tool into C# and it runs perfectly fine. So what we're going to try to do, I'm going to make sure that I have antivirus turned on this machine. To Defender, security settings. All right, let's turn on. Okay, so real-time protection is on. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to take WCM dump and I'm going to try to copy it onto, I'm going to try to copy it onto my box, and it should probably complain about it. So if I take the PowerShell script, let me find the actual PowerShell script. This is flagged as malicious, and guess what? Windows Defender is not going to be happy about that. I'm gonna drop it into, try to drop it in the root right here. Threat protection. Oh no! What are we gonna do? Start quarantine. No, remove it. All right, whatever. Okay. I'm just gonna leave it alone. So that got flagged. Let's delete it. Oops, not rename won't do it. Delete. It's complaining. It's stealing it. And if I refresh here, eventually it'll just be gone. It's quarantined. Anyways, I can't touch it. It will eventually go. So now what we're going to do is, if we take a look at that actual code right here, let me show you this real quick. This is why it's really helpful to sometimes take this code and turn it into C#. What you'll notice here is this really is C# right here. This is a PowerShell that is calling C#. It's just a big ass function right here. And at the end of the day, all it does is say add type definition, C#, pass through, and it just calls this load all. And would you believe if I take this C# verbatim that Windows Defender says, it's perfectly fine. That's great. Let's do that. Okay, so we're just gonna go to invoke WCM dump. We're gonna look at this solution, and all I have done is I've taken that code out of PowerShell and put it into C#, compiled it, and then we will go bypass Defender and dump some credentials here. The code is all down here. It's just literally just turned it into C#. So we'll build it, compile it as was asked earlier. Let me rebuild it because I've already, it says build succeed if you haven't compiled it. Long story short, sometimes you have to rebuild it if nothing has changed. It's just trying to be helpful, save you some time. All right, so we're gonna grab WCM dump 1, copy. We're gonna go out to our business share, and you can see it removed our PowerShell. Oh no. All right, so let's go to our share, change directory temp. You've noticed, obviously, that it did not flag on it. Tools, I think. Yeah, so WCM dump. And what this does is this is dumping the credentials from my, I'll show you exactly where it's coming from. If you do credentials, just type credentials in here. And this is the username and password of the credentials that I've got stored here. So I've got help desk, I've got Joe user, I've got the administrator, I've got some dev, and you can see here are my passwords right here. It's just taken those and dumped those, and we just bypassed Windows Defender pretty easily right there. Okay, so that is just a very simple bypass in the sense that you're just take me some PowerShell, turning it into C#. We're going to show you some. We're going to do one better here in a minute, much better. Okay, let's move on to see what that is. Okay, so safety cats. Safety cats is a C# version of Mimikatz. And if I try to drop it on there, Windows Defender is going to get pissy, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to drop safety cats on there with as is, just to show you I'm not hiding anything. Not trying to hide anything. Safety cats, where are you? So I have my compiled exe, and you'll notice I have my compiled exe with Confuser ex. We'll go over that in just a minute. So let's take this guy here. Let's try to drop it over here. Close this out. Paste it right into the tools area, and immediately it says no, not gonna have that, right? So what safety cats does is essentially allows you to dump the credentials from memory. So we're gonna let that do its thing. But what we're gonna do now is we are going to mangle this code with our with Visual Studio and a tool that I love, and it's called Confuser EX. I've done a write-up on this, but to see what it actually does is quite a beautiful thing. So I have a copy of Safety Cats. The original is here, and let me get rid of this guy. Those are my mangled versions that I had run previously. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find Confuser EX. And this is a C# obfuscator, and it is a wonderful, incredible tool. And especially with so many tools being in C# now, you don't even have to have the damn source code with this. You have the binary, like a Mimikatz or a Sharpcats like that. All we have to do is say, hey, drag your input module here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and drag my little, my Sharpcats on there, and we're gonna bypass Defender. Yes, we are. All right, there we go. Okay, so there it is. Now we're gonna go to some settings. We're gonna pick this, and I'm gonna say plus true. And what I'm gonna do, there's a lot of different things you can do here. I set this to normal, and just want to point out that the more obfuscated you make it, the more likely it will be to break. So we're gonna add 3 things. We're gonna add ILDASM protection. We're gonna add tamper protection. We're gonna add constants protection. And that's gonna be it for now. I just think that's gonna be it. I'm gonna say done, and I can pack it if I want to, but I'm gonna say protect it. Let's let that run. It's doing all this incredible work for me. Just wonderful. And I wanna show you guys before and after what this looks like. I wanna introduce another tool before we actually, let me show you that it bypasses Defender, then I'll show you what is actually done behind the scenes. So I believe it created a safety cats here. I'm gonna rename this just to make sure that Microsoft didn't do something stupid with the name. I'll call it KA, whatever. Because sometimes you have just the word Mimikatz will freak it out. So we're gonna drop that on here. Paste. All right, and we are gonna go ahead and run k.exe. Now you have to run this as administrator because we are touching LSASS. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. And all right, and KA, I believe, right? KA, boom. Dump the LSASS, there it goes. Boom, and Defender says, I don't care, go ahead, that's fine. All right, so let's scroll back up here and see that we are running all the way back up here. We're running Mimikatz right there. Boom, and as I mentioned, Vincent Latour right there. I mean, Benjamin Delpy gets a ton of credit. I'm not sure a lot of people knew who Vincent Latour is, so give that guy some love. So he wrote, you can see Ping Castle right there. Incredible tool. But as you can see, we're getting my NTLM hash right here. My password for my help desk account happens to be in memory. Woohoo! Just bypass it. Now let me show you another tool that allows you to actually see what was happening. So there's a tool called ILSpy, and let's go grab it. And we're going to look at safety cats before, and we're going to look at safety cats after, so we can actually see what this does. So this is a decompiler, ILSpy is, and all we have to do is drag in the binaries that we want to look at. So we're going to look at safety cats first, unobfuscated. Drop that in here. And what you'll see is human readable code. You can look at PE loader, and it doesn't look crazy. I mean, if you are not familiar with, like, if you're not familiar with code, it might look crazy. But this is all pretty human readable stuff. You can see here's a mini dump. You can see the calls for, you can see the calls. It's very straightforward and easy to read. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at that, compare that to our good friend, what Confuser EX has done to that binary. It's unspeakable. And I feel very, very, very sorry for any blue teams that have to unobfuscate this. There are tools that profess to do it. I still would not want to have that job. So let's go and look at the confused version of it. Drag that over here. And let's take a look at this guy. Again, can't even figure our way around here. It's just garbage. It's just god awful. It's like, I can't even figure it out. It's like, it's just impossible, right? You can maybe run a decompiler on it, but I can see why Microsoft has a hard time doing that. So anyways, you can see it's just awful what it's done to it. It's done all kinds of unmanageable and crazy things. So I wanted to point out that there are a lot more settings in here that you can mangle this with. So like I mentioned, there are, just scroll on down here through these things. There's all kinds of different things that you can apply to these C# binaries. So I love the fact that, one, you don't have to have the source for the binary. So somebody you trust, of course, gives you a binary that you need has some functionality you need, and you can still bypass a lot of antivirus with these tools. So that's Confuser EX. Any questions on Confuser EX or IL Spy before we move on?
We don't, but someone asked what editor do you recommend?
I use Visual Studio for all my development. Visual Code is really good as well. And just for notepad editing, I like Notepad++. That's my own personal preference. I just kind of grew up on Visual Studio, so that's I like it.
Had another question.
Sure.
When you manual it, does it create a different version?
Yes, it does.
Every other.
Yes, it does. Oh, so can we? Yeah, let's take the exact same settings and do a binary compare of those two. So I don't believe I've changed any settings. Let's go back to our safety cats. I haven't checked that, so let's do a quick check to see. Oops, that one needs to be minus. That one, we need to make sure there's only the 3. Let me get rid of the third one. I got remove. Okay, remove. Protections remove. Okay, we'll leave it there. And then we'll do protect again, and I need to give it a new name. Output. Confused. Let me rename that. Oh, I've already renamed it in that folder, so it should be name it safety cats when I do that. We'll protect it again, and we're going to do a compare again to see just real quickly if these things. So okay, it's done, and don't want to save changes. Let's do a quick comparison of these. I'm going to copy these out to my folder. I'm going to say test, and I'll run Beyond Compare, which is another good tool to use for comparisons. If you, hey, this is a tool show, so hey, it's great. So we're going to say Beyond Compare. If you haven't used it, just select the left file, select the right file, compare to safety cats. Oops, I must have done that wrong. So oh, I did that right. Compare safety cats. I think I think I did this wrong, if I understand. Let me try that again. All right. KA, select left file to compare. Compare to KA. There we go. So it says there's differences, but it's not showing me what the differences are. I haven't done much binary comparisons. I use this for string comparisons. Your internet connection is unstable. That's not good. Can you guys still see me? All right. So I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but I'm assuming that yeah, you could modify the code yourself and then rechange it, and that would do it as well. Or you could just, here's another thing you can do really quickly is if you're running the safety catch, you can change the aggressive level on it. So if you remember, Confuser EX has different protection levels. I guess we have to pick something in order to protect it. So give me a second. See, safety cats. Let's grab that. All right, on the protection levels, if you remember, this guy has a setting, and you can say aggressive or maximum or whatever. So you can probably check these things, and every binary is going to be a little bit different. Of course, if you have the source code, you can have some fun. If I have some time, I'll show you my tool, which actually change strings within a binary. That's a fun thing to do. But anyways, I think that's enough on Confuser. We got a couple more tools. Any questions on that before we move on? No? Okay.
It says, are we able to use Confuser as a loader?
I'm not exactly sure what that means as far as if we can use Confuser as a loader. All I know is it obfuscates the binary to the point where
Malware loader.
as a malware loader.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what that means. You can take malware and modify it if only if it's a C# assembly. So Confuser EX is only going to help you if it's .NET. You can I think you can actually do VB or F# because it's all the same under the hoods, but it has to be .NET. That's not useful for anything else. I'm going to show you Metame real quickly. Let's go down here to show you that you can do Metame with anything. So what I've done, and the hardest thing about Metame is getting this damn thing working. It took me, and I am not joking, probably 3 days to get this thing on all the dependencies working. So if you want me to, I will share my VM with you. If you bring a USB, if you meet me up at DHA, I will give you a copy of my Metame built thing. And what this does, and I have to log in, give me a second to remember my password. I think. Let me in. All right. Systems reported a problem. I don't care. What this does, let's go to Payload Generation and give it a good description. I can't do it justice what it does. All right. What it does is takes a binary and messes with a binary. And it doesn't matter if it's C#. It can be any binary, which is beautiful. Essentially, from a high level, what it does is it finds assembly and it replaces with equivalent assembly. A simple metamorphic code engine for arbitrary executables. And so here it is. Opens a given binary, randomly replaces instructions with equivalents in logic and size, copy and patches the original binary and the mutated variant. Now through my through some testing on VirusTotal, I've been able to drop off 3 or 4 different AV engines using this technique. It's not like super helpful, but every little bit helps. So if you can change strings and you can change functionality, then you might change this and it makes a difference. So we're gonna go over here and I guess Metame. Here we go. Let's check. Yeah. So just type Metame. You've got an input pile, which is whatever you want, Mimi cats. Output, an output file, and do output Mimi cats 2.exe, I guess. And it looks for, again, equivalent assembly, and it replaces it the same size. I kind of liken it to, for example, if a for loop was, if it did it to a for loop, it might have changed it to a while loop, something equivalent to that. But you can say that the larger this thing is, the more number of functions that it'll actually change. Let's see here. Takes just a minute. How are we doing on time?
Well, we're still good.
Okay, we're still good. Okay. All right. So again, the hardest thing about this tool is getting this VM set up. And there's something it uses called Keystone, which was a pain in the tuchus to set up. And again, this was definitely great for bypassing if you have an AV vendor that does hashes. This is going to just blow right past that. It's just signature based. It's going to be gone. Number of instructions changed, 8,486 instructions changed. And like I said, feel free to test that out. And if you have a problem getting it together like I did, feel free to grab me at DHA, just let me a USB and say, hey, can you get me a copy of your Metame? It's only, I think, 18 gigabytes. So it fits on a USB pretty easy. Like I said, that was the hardest part. Okay, we'll move on to another tool. All right, so privilege escalation. There's some great ones, and this one has come out recently. This one called Invoke Privest Check. I like it. I like Sherlock, I like Seatbelt. There's a bunch of fantastic tools that people have gotten out there that make privilege escalation a lot easier to identify. So I at least wanted to point this one out real quick. All right, let's go out to our Windows server again and invoke privileged schecks. Just a PowerShell script. Let's see here. Excuse me. Let's change to, I guess I gotta go to PowerShell. What's this? PowerShell. All right. Do I need to increase the font a little bit? Or is that okay? Can you guys see it? Okay. All right. So, very down, temporary tools, directory 2, invoke, log on prompt, privilege check. All right. So, set execution, dang it. Set execution policy, execution bypass, scope, process. Yes. All right. Yes. Oh, sure. All right. So we're going to import module. There's only one in here, so come on. Don't make my life difficult. It's not responding. I hit tab and it said no. Control C. Control Y. Control C. No. Control Z. Nothing. Ugh. I hate that when it just hangs. Let's try it again. Bear with me. Sorry about that. Autocomplete sometimes is can be a problem. It's a blessing and a curse. Okay, there it goes. All right, yeah, it finally came back. So now we're just going to go invoke priv esc check, and let me. Is that clear to everybody? Or do I need to zoom this in a little bit? Let me change the font just a little bit. Make it a little bit bigger. It takes a little while to get through some of this stuff, so let's go back up to the top, see what it's doing. So I'm running it as a regular user. Found some information, get my SID. Who do I belong to? Am I an admin? No. What interesting privileges do I have? I'm a regular user, so all I can do is shut the system down. Woohoo! You know, nothing particularly useful there. But there is, it talks about the services that the normal thing you'd find in a privilege escalation, like unquoted service paths and services that have writable configuration, different, obviously, services there, checking service permissions. So it checks for vulnerable services for you, checks for service permissions, nothing found. If it does find something, then it'll tell you, and that's always really nice to, from a privilege escalation standpoint, to have pointers to be able to get to admin. Because once you're admin on one box, man, you can have a lot of fun, can't you, Darren? After one box, you fire up responder, you start looking through open file shares, and it's so much easier once you're admin, though. I mean, okay. So, anyways, we'll let this run, but essentially, you can see that it's essentially another privilege escalation script. While we're on that, there is a thing called broot, which has a, let's go back here. Broot has a Windows version and Linux version, which I thought is kind of nice. So let's go look at the Windows version real quick while that's running. We'll do that, and it's just a exe, which is refreshing in my opinion. Broot. Okay, we'll run that. Unused privilege, bang. Oops, I guess I got to run that from a command prompt or it's going to close. I didn't do a read line. Tools, directory, broot. All right. Let that run. Change our fonts again just to make it a little bit easier on your eyes. And it's, as you can see, it's got lots of information. Most of it's not helpful here. It's like, okay, permissions, do you have access to modify this thing? Yes or no? Change config? No. Can you start it? Yes. Can you stop it? No. And so it's, I mean, I wish it would like sort this, but it's, you find a variety of information in here. So some of these things you can start, but you can't, you know, you can't change the config. Some of them you can change the config, but you can't start. And again, it's just a lot of information in there. And of course, there's other things in there after you get past the services. It tells you some information about the startups. It tells you about pass without quotes, which is the unquoted service path escalation. Binary with writable directory. It's my VMware tools. Task scheduler. Can you create a task? Yes, you can. And there's an error in the web client. Okay, let's look at the Linux version. Just as useful. Bear with me. I just love the fact that that people write tools that can do that. Just they write a tool that's useful in dev and sorry, not in dev, but and we'll just run Python root. There we go. I think that's pretty cool that people do that. All right, so just a couple of privilege escalation scripts, and I have a ton of them. If you ever are interested in it, I'll be happy to show you privilege escalation. Let those run. Maybe do this another time. Privilege escalation. Go to Windows. You can see there's a bunch of different things that you can do for privilege escalation. Now those were just like privilege escalation and enumeration. Some of these things are actually used for privilege escalation, but we can save that for another time. That was just Windows. Now there's obviously ones for Linux too. So anyways, lots of different tools. Okay, any other questions? I think that's about it for today. I'm gonna make sure I'll put a link to all of these tools up on my Medium, and then I'll send a link to Phil. And then feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. Feel free to hit me up in at Pwn School or hit me up at DHA, and I'll be happy to share any experience I have because everybody has done that for me.
Someone did ask,
yeah,
could someone use the last password exe and use it through remote view share?
Say that one more time.
Could someone use the last password exe and use it through remote view share?
I don't know what that question means. Someone could use the LastPass exe.
Last password, I guess, for the tool.
The last, are you talking about the last tool that I sent? If
yeah, this was early.
Oh yeah. So get last password. Let's take a look. And assuming that you were talking about the let me take a look at my.
Someone said, I think they were asking about the fake lock screen.
Oh, fake lock screen. Yes, that's a funny one. So the fake lock screen. What you can do is, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of utilities for that thing. I mean, right now, all it's writing is it writes to a local file, but you could easily modify this thing to, again, like I said, write it off to a temporary share. I like the idea of, again, oh, there's one more tool I got to show. I forgot this, and this is just for all your bosses out there. This is just, I have to show this. This is a great tool for you scaring your blue team and also for making it look like you're actually doing something. So this deserves a full screen treatment right here. This is called GenAct, and if you haven't seen this, all it does is generate bogus activity. It makes it look like you're actually doing something. So somebody walks in, you can say, "Oh, yep, I'm installing that new tool to take you guys down. I'm installing Cobalt Strike, or I've got a new payload that I'm generating." And it's just actually garbage. This is making no connections, even though it says it's connecting out to the internet. It's hilarious. And if you start it again, you'll see that it runs a different version of this thing. Setting universal physical constants, and some of the setting rhinoceros breeding timetable. I mean, some of this stuff is actually really friggin' hilarious. Scrubbing terrain, calibrating blue skies. I mean, whoever wrote this has got a great sense of humor. Sometimes it's just funny to watch. Compressing fish files, right? I mean, this is just, I hope that just this one tool was worth your time. This is just a fun tool to run in the background. It's just great, and I think it's your boss walks in, it looks like you're doing something, right? That's a good tool for that. As far as the any other tools, just feel free to hit me up in DHA or Pwn School, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can. I think that's it.
Sounds
Phil,
good.
you miss anything?
Thanks a lot for presenting, and thanks to everyone for joining. Sorry for the inconvenience of no physical meetup this month, but we will find another location and time for next month. So
I'll send the link in a few minutes.
and he'll send a link in a few minutes so we can get that distributed to everyone. So thanks again for everyone for joining.